and we're going to start talking about some SCOTUS updates. SCOTUS being the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, on Monday, the Supreme Court of the United States gutted constitutional protection that historically provided a federal lifeline to innocent prisoners facing lifelong incarceration or even execution. The case concerned wrongful convictions stemming from poor legal counsel given to them by the state. In a direct blow to prisoners who are hoping to get federal courts to hear their claims of innocence, and in another attack on stare decisis, the court decided that the federal judges can't determine guilt of people for state crimes, even if there is proof of innocence. And it's stuff like that that makes me say that we're living in fucking hell world right now. Honestly, if you were a Bernie bro and you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, shame on you. I hate to say that, but this was anybody that was politically engaged at all saw this coming due to the ages of the Supreme Court justices that would sat on the bench and their liberal bent. This is taking away the rights of innocent people from redress and saying the state made its case, we can't do anything about it. Bullshit. Where's the mercy? Where's the facts? Federalism doesn't mean you throw out facts, mercy, common sense. Just because, well, the federal courts aren't supposed to be involved. No, fuck that. The federal courts exist as a check on state power. That's one of the reasons they exist. Going back to the Articles of Confederation, which is what a lot of these people want to do, is unsustainable. It looks like I'm making this into a clip too. In its 6-3 supermajority ruling, with Clarence Thomas, because of course it was Clarence Thomas. Scalia died and now he's just like, well, I gotta write all the fucked up shit that I've been waiting on. Who wrote the majority opinion, described that federal courts should only act as a review of state procedures and whether or not they acted correctly when finding someone guilty. If this doesn't motivate you to vote, I don't know what will. Between this and the school shooting, and the lack of anything getting done due to the procedures that are hampering and breaking down our democracy, breaking down our civil society. Because make no mistake, part of this is procedural. Part of these are norms that have been thrown out in order for pure partisan gain, especially around the Supreme Court. Are part of the reason why we are seeing as much partisanship as we are seeing right now. One of the reasons. It's one of the reasons why the left and the right are getting more extreme by the day. Because things aren't being done to help regular people. The inability for Congress to do anything without 60 senators being approving of it is hampering our ability to fix broken systems. And the Supreme Court is in the way of that as well, especially with rulings like this. All because, as Clarence Thomas said, the court's lower rulings violated state sovereignty. I'm sorry, but federalism does not preclude common sense. It does not preclude the federal government from being a check on state power. That's the whole point of federalism. Federalism is for the states and the federal government to check each other's power in an effort to stop fucked up shit from happening. It's why the Constitution supersedes states' constitutions. It's why the 14th and 13th Amendment were passed. It's why the United States has gone from a state-centric system to a shared powers system. Because we learned lessons from the past. And we're right now quickly forgetting them, all because of partisan bullshit. Quoting past decisions, Thomas wrote that ultimately, quote, it would be unseemly in our dual system of government for a federal district court to upset a state court conviction without giving an opportunity to the state courts to correct a constitutional violation. No, the state already failed to correct its constitutional violation. That's why the federal courts are stepping in. This, of course, is probably one of those situations where there's some business in the background saying, hey, let's get that bread, fam. I'm sure. Because, as you all know, Clarence Thomas gets a lot of lobby money from his wife. That's not a conflict of interest at all. Again, another norm being jettisoned for partisan gain. Now, the decision is a win for strict constitutionalists who argue that the federal courts have broadened their powers too much and stripped away its states' abilities to make meaningful decisions on crime. No, it is I'm just going to keep saying it. The federal courts and the federal government exist to be a check on state bullshittery, on state power. And the states exist to be a check on federal power. They don't exist to ignore facts, logic, reason, common sense like this decision does. This decision is just, it's abhorrent. Now, the case before the justices arose after state officials in Arizona petitioned the Supreme Court to prevent 2 of the state's death row inmates. Death penalty shouldn't exist. Just gonna make that clear right now. I'm 100% against the death penalty. Too many innocent people are murdered by the state every year. Seems like every day we find out another person on death row is innocent, given the facts of the case. Especially if those convictions were between the 1960s and the 1990s. Because racism is evergreen in America. Petitioned the Supreme Court to prevent 2 of its state's death row inmates, one with a strong case of proclaimed innocence, the other with a low IQ and a history of family abuse, from seeking relief in federal court from capital punishment. The state argued that the condemned men should not be allowed to present new evidence to a federal judge when they have failed to do so previously in state court. Lawyers from the condemned men pointed out that they had only failed to present the evidence in state court because the legal counsel that they had been assigned by the state was woefully inadequate. This is a common thing. States do not want to pay for private attorneys. They don't want to pay good money for state public defenders. If many states had their way, we would not have public defenders at all. Because what is in the state's interest? State's interest is to get a conviction to make the state look better. That's just logic. And the federal court system created, not out of whole cloth, but out of reason, logic, common sense, the facts don't care about your feelings crowd, that the modern court system, that courts require people that are having their rights potentially being taken away from them, their life potentially being taken away from them, need proper legal defense. So what's next? The court's going to overturn that too? Is the right wing, given the things that I've experienced online over the last 4 weeks, ready just to go Judge Dredd, Punisher on people? I don't know. It looks like some of them are. And this is another way to do that. Now, lawyers for the state of Arizona argued that the court should allow the execution of the man who had a strong case for actual innocence, using the rationale that the lower court's ruling violated a decades-old anti-terrorism law made by Congress. Wow. I can't even respond to that. The law prohibits state defendants from introducing new evidence during a federal trial, even if the evidence exonerates the accused. Of course, the war on terrorism shows its face again, and it's another thing that takes away your rights as a U.S. citizen. Pretty sure Osama bin Laden's happy about that. He said that the federal governments should not be allowed to override the state's core power to enforce criminal law. That continues to be the case, the majority ruled, even where defendants are given bad legal advice by attorneys provided for them by the same state that are condemning them to long prison sentences and or execution. The decision eviscerated the Supreme Court's own precedent because, again, stare decisis is a norm. It is not codified in any law that once a court rules, can't overrule it. That's a good thing. Okay? Courts fuck up. They should be allowed to correct mistakes. I'm not saying that we should get rid of that, but that's why this is happening. Because the Court of the United States, the Supreme Court of the United States, is not a august body of high-minded individuals with no biases. They are at the whims of their own ideology and biases and political influence as everybody else. And they are a political institution. And that has been the case since its founding. It has been the case since Marbury versus Madison, which is a decision I agree with, by the way. Because a Supreme Court that can't overturn laws that are unconstitutional is a court that does not need to exist at all. But it's things like this that make me question the logic and the sound reasoning of those decisions and makes me makes me want to see core constitutional changes to the court that puts rails on things like this, that spells it out, that takes these norms that only exist on paper and by tradition that doesn't seem that anybody gives a shit about, and solidifies them into law, as well as provide other guardrails against fuckery such as this. Because with this ruling, the federal government could pass a law and it wouldn't matter. Now, in her dissenting opinion, Justice Sotomayor decried the ruling, quoting, "This decision is perverse, it is illogical." Sotomayor argued that under the court's own precedent, prisoners cannot be held accountable and effectively punished for, quote, their attorney's failures to present claims in state court. She concluded that as a result of the majority's decision, the Sixth Amendment guarantee that criminal defendants have the right to effective legal counsel at trial is now an empty one. And that is 100% true. Because they don't care about that. They believe that the court's ruling for Miranda rights and for providing effective counsel that relied on an interpretation of the Sixth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and the Fourth Amendment were wrong rulings because of their political ideology. It's a little bit authoritarian, if you ask me, the way they're ruling. It's essentially saying a state government can do no wrong and the federal government should be toothless, feckless, powerless. Now, in the future, she said, prisoners who have had poor legal assistance would have no relief, which is true based on this decision. Quote, the responsibility for this devastating outcome lies not with Congress, but the court. And she is 100% correct. And this, make no mistake, a lot of the decisions that are coming out of the Supreme Court now are making liberals and leftists distrust the court, similar to how conservatives distrusted the court due to its decisions surrounding civil rights. And it's going to increase partisanship. That's why we need amendments. We need new laws. We need to codify some of these norms into law. We're going to suffer the consequences.